Welcome to this historical episode of Tracker. We're going to cover an excellent interview of historical value with the Imperator candidate at the time, Paul LaSalle. I remind all of you to subscribe to the Tracker Network. And if you've already been a subscriber, I thank you very much for sticking around. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to Tracker, the official show of the Bounty Hunters Guild. Garrett Kaliga here with the latest news, tips, and tricks to make your next collar successful. Normally, the show focuses on the nitty-gritty details behind bounty hunting, but today is a bit different. Sometimes it's important to change perspective, see the forest from the trees. That's why I'll be talking with Imperator candidate Paul LaSalle about his overall vision for the Empire and, in particular, his proposed Safe and Secure Initiative, or as it's come to be known, the SSI. I'll tell you, I'm intrigued by this plan and I can't wait to hear more about it. Candidate LaSalle is the chosen centralist representative in the decade's bid for Imperator, which makes a lot of sense since he spent the last 8 years leading the party and preparing for this run over that time. Before chairing the Centralists, he served as a senator from Goss for 2 terms, and before that, he founded a hauling conglomerate that Kovalex would eventually buy out for a pretty hefty sum. A darn impressive sounding CV if you ask me. Paul LaSalle, glad you could join us today. Thanks for having me. Your campaign slogan is the right leader for the right time. That it is. So I'll ask bluntly, why are you that leader? Not sure if you saw this, but the other day a rival referred to me as an elder legislator. That was candidate Addison, right? Correct. I believe the intention was to paint me as a boring and maybe a bit out of touch, but I actually think it was a compliment. For me, the word elder is associated with experience, and legislator synonymous with the phrase interested in the details. Sure, that might sound a bit boring, but it also means that I have a wealth of experience that the other candidates lack. They all have either experience in politics or in the private sector. However, I have both. Let's talk about some of that experience, beginning with how you got started. It was a small maybe I'll choose my words carefully here, humble hauling concern in Goss, right? Correct. Started it right before Goss's corporate taxes rate jumped rather significantly. I forgot how much exactly, but I'm pretty sure we would not have survived those early years at that inflated rate. That's just one of the many reasons why I, when elected, will lower taxes, particularly for small business owners. I would expect a lot of your audience falls into that similar category. Fair assumption. We definitely have a bit of an independent streak for sure. I really do believe the backbone of this empire can be found in independent entrepreneurs like yourselves, local people serving the needs of their local community. Large conglomerates have their place, but too often their one-size-fits-all solutions just leave everyone wearing shoes that don't fit, so to speak. Take the advocacy, for example. You could consider them a conglomerate of sorts, great at handling the norm, but when situations get tricky, we all rely on who? Bounty hunters, i.e. small businesses in this case. And it's only possible for so many bounty hunters to run successful small businesses because a healthy, dynamic economy encourages individualism and specialization. I have a whole plan for how to fix this economy so those who currently feel left out can reap the same rewards. But I should probably stop myself, since it's easy for me to get lost in the details. I appreciate you keeping us on track. I know your time is precious. So, to prepare for this, I've read your Safe and Secure Initiative. That's great. We need buy-in from everyone involved in the security of the UEE. Bounty hunters definitely fit the bill. Well, I found the proposals interesting, but a little light on specifics. Perfect. The ideal dynamic to begin a debate with is general consensus and interest in exploring the details. But first, let me provide a few broad strokes for those who aren't familiar. The Safe and Secure initiative focuses on 3 pillars: empowerment, engagement, and repayment. Well, let's start with repayment. Bet you like the end of a vid before watching it too. Guilty. I have already got enough excitement in my life. The focus of the repayment pillar would be legislation that eliminates prison sentencing for all but the most violent cases. Instead, those found guilty of crimes would be required to pay back society in credits garnered from wages, not time served. A lot of funds the government spends on incarceration would be redirected towards employment programs that would match offenders with companies in need of employees. My hope is that by keeping folks out of jail, we can significantly decrease the funds spent on repeat offenders. Do you know what us bounty hunters call repeat offenders? What? Job security. That's good, but I stand by the SSI. I fully expect that with my plan, your guild's workload will increase. Someone still has to bring in these individuals into the system, ensure they stay there, and catch them when they don't. This way, not only are your bounty hunters working, but so are the people we're trying to reform. Taking someone out of the workforce and extending periods of time just sets them up for more hardship and makes them more willing to recidivate again. I'm sure you've caught plenty of outlaws over the years, only to see the net name reappear and appear and appear on crime sheet after crime sheet, not long thereafter. Happens all the time. Back when I was working GOS, one of those names was Alan Hastings, who you're familiar with, since she provided you several loans during those first few lean years of your hauling concern that your business was running. She was snared several times, but the charges never seemed to stick. That is, until she took things to the extreme to keep her syndicate in power. Sadly, I am familiar with that name and the regrettable unlawful actions she undertook well after our business relationship was over. I promise that the legislation included in the repayment pillar of the SSI would still put serious offenders like Miss Hastings away for a long time. You may not be associated with Miss Hastings then, but your association with her certainly paid off handsomely for both you and aided each other's rise in your respective fields. Look. Businesses attract all sorts. One of its keys is knowing when to walk away from something or someone. Young Mr. Costigan has suffered similar associations with his business dealings. I assume you're referring to that Spectrum ad released this week. Yes. But how about we refocus the conversation on the SSI and let the ad speak for itself? The ad makes some interesting allegations, including that Titus has deep financial ties to the multi-system drug syndicate. Any guess who's behind it? I couldn't say. So it wasn't someone associated with, say, your campaign? Absolutely not. I want this election to be about the policies, not politics. Just because the Costigans and Sherrard campaigns, along with their proxies, have begun to throw mud at each other, doesn't mean that I will join them down in the muck. Alright, we need to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back shortly with more from Centralist Imperator candidate Paul LaSalle. We'll discuss the empowerment and engagement pillars supporting his safety and security initiative, which includes his plan to loosen certain weapon restrictions. Some are sure out there are interested in. Don't make a move, because Tracker will be right back. Whew, that was Tracker, Paul LaSalle's plan for the UEE, released in Spectrum Dispatch on July 22nd, 2020. This was a historic time for StarCitizen because the community was asked to vote on who was going to become the next Imperator. And for those who, rightfully so, do not follow everything to do with StarCitizen's internal lore politics, or were just joining the community after this vote occurred, there was a whole bevy of different people to choose from, some of which wanted to move the headquarters of the entire UEE from Seoul to another star system. There was a push for continuing the development of a fake world in a system that's desirable to have a planet in that has breathable oxygen and it's usable, and basically was a money pit, if you will, at least if you listen to their opponents. Costigan, who wanted a strong UEE military and get the UEE Navy and advocacy even stronger, arming up against the Vandul and giving people more rights with weaponry. And you heard that also talked about here with Paul LaSalle, talking about small arms and other types of weapon systems to be used by citizenry against everyone, pirates or whoever else. He was kind of like his position was, as a centralist, if you believe his positions and you don't listen to the fact that he has a little bit of history, just like the rest of most of these candidates, his position is, I really don't care what you do as long as you don't break the law. Everybody's happy. And if you break the law, pay a fine, unless you do something really, really bad. Pay a big fine and we'll figure it out. You heard here a wonderful juxtaposition up against a very no-nonsense person. Garrett Kaliga being the Tracker bounty hunter talk show host, if you will. You heard him in my previous video in Pyro, which guest starred Ash, by the way. She did a great job on that one. You heard him talking shop with some of the toughest bounty hunters in the whole verse. So when you hear him talking to a politician, it's kind of funny how it's kind of like worlds collide a little bit. So this was a fun one. Unfortunately, there's not more of this. I had a question about that a few lore videos ago. I don't cut these off. Whatever they have, they have. And I don't agree or disagree with them, by the way, either. If that ever comes up, just to kind of question that one right now. I enjoy these, and I thought this would be a fun one to cherry pick out of the endless stream of lore posts and then I have to filter them down to what's readable, at least 2 or less characters so I can read it by myself. And then I have to also look at, like, is this practical? Is there something exciting here? And this one has a little bit of a buried lead. Like, Costigan almost comes to verbal blows with LaSalle towards the end, where he's basically trying to call him on his bluff, so to speak, or at least what Costigan thinks that is. Costigan, oh my God. I'll leave that in just for fun. Kaliga. That was on my brain to talk about next. The two lead people I think that got the most votes were Addison and Costigan. Costigan being a traditionalist, and Addison being very science, moving us around to move forward with sciences and spending more on that type of equipment. But Costigan's position was, you can have the most expensive, best sensors in the world, but what happens if the Vandal trick those sensors, or those sensors fail us, and we don't have the tiny little bit of fleet you want to maintain and keep and pay for, because the fleet is very expensive to run, especially when you talk about larger capital ships. The Javelin is a small capital ship. It is quite a capital ship, but it's more of a flagship of a militia trying to keep a safe system off the pirates. or say in a massive group of them being able to attack and be able to defend against a reasonable size incursion by the Vanduul. It is not meant to be by itself. We need more Pegasus type carriers would be cost against position. Where Addison's position is, if we can figure out a way to smartly deploy our equipment, we can spend more on sciences, education, and innovation. That's literally her motto, was education, innovation, science first. Addison won the vote. It was a close, really bizarre vote because there's so many different candidates. The numbers were spread out, and at least in game terms, she is now the imperator for 10 years. However, her control is checked by the other branches of government. So, for example, the Senate is very traditionalist, and they're not happy about Costigan's son not making it through. So Addison is going to try to push as hard as she can into sciences and innovation and such. And then the Congress is like, that's nice, but we're only going to take this, this, and this, and then we're only going to pass this through. She has to come back to the Congress, aka Senate, to handle all this stuff and go through. And then you have the Advo has their own influences, but they're on a smaller scale. You have some pretty interesting stuff going along the sidelines here. If you like a full video on the politics of the UEE, I think it would be fun. Maybe a House of Cards style video. Like just a quick 2-minute voiceover of each one of the different people. Maybe pick a random person, like a prominent senator, Addison, maybe an assistant to Addison. And kind of talk about each one of them, and then maybe some of the candidates that did not make it. We could have some fun, because remember, those candidates were part of parties, and those parties make up the Senate, and those majorities of the Senate make the decisions, and then Addison is being tasked with implementing them in the way she sees fit, which is an interesting dynamic. I am not going to comment on real life stuff here, but yes, if you want to do something that is something fun and maybe makes it more accessible, this major part of the UEE government system and how it works and how this whole system operates or doesn't operate too well, we can talk about that, but I won't go into compare it to real life or anything. Okay. So, long story made short, we have some fascinating topic here, all in a tracker, which is, I really like Garrett Kaliga. I think he's a very fun character. I think he's very down to earth, and coming from a system that we're not used to. I know I'm a broken record about this, but I'm a big sucker for stuff that isn't from Stanton. So both of these men have experience in the system called GOS. And GOS is actually a really fascinating place that I think we need to learn more about. Now, GOS is actually physically a small system, only 6 AU across as of right now. Remember, these systems always can change by the time they're actually implemented, down the line. But GOS is a rather small system. It has 3 planets. It's a dual star system, interestingly, dwarf stars. And the 2 that really make the most interest to me are GOS 2, which is a touristy destination. It is actually one of the places where you would take an 890 jump and take pictures, or a 600i touring and a Phoenix, those type of vessels, and go on a wonderful tour of the countryside there and into the coastlines. It is a amazing place, and we're talking about Cairns, Australia or something, biodiverse rainforest meet the ocean front. It's going to be an amazing place. GOS 3, on the other hand, is interesting for a different reason. It's a small world that is only used by the military, and it's one of the secretive places that the UEE tests their new equipment. So really, really cool place with very different planets. There's 3 different planets used in GOS for habitation, but by the way, GOS 1, just to kind of complete the list, it's a farmland place. But anyway, GOS 2 and 3 are very exotic, if you will. And I think that's what you want to, when you're playing the game and you want to explore, that to me is fascinating. Honestly, GOS 1 might be a cheaper place to build, outposts or some such, or find moons around those areas. And then GOS 2 and 3 are the really fun places to check out. GOS 2 is actually called Castle. So if you ever heard that in lore, that's what they're talking about. Um, yeah, Castle is the main planetary landing location, planet, etc. They call it. That is Gostu. So just bear that in mind. So now you've learned a little bit about the system, and I gotta say that it is one of the more interesting places in the known verse. Um, I can't wait to explore more of these places. I also can't wait to explore the Olympus pool. I'm going to include a wiki article link to the GOS system and let you explore that yourself. Uh, about the tourists should avoid this region of space entirely that is the Olympus pool. Now I got the wiki up, I can really check out some of these cooler places that are designed to conduct illegal trade. The nebula there blocks some of the scanning capabilities of the. Ooh, how do we word this? People that are on the tracker show and law enforcement activities. Those kind of folks in the military avo and such. Um, yeah. So very interesting system. All in 6AU. You see, this is the future of StarCitizen right here, exploring all these different systems. And these lore posts bring to life these systems that we don't have yet. So that's what interests me. And I hope it interests you. And I thank you for checking out these videos and keeping lore alive. This will date the video, but screw it. I wish you a good Luminalia. I wish you a merry or happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah, all that fun stuff, and happy New Year. Whatever you celebrate, whatever it is, go for it. And I wish you and your family a great time in this time of the year where really you take stock of what you have and you appreciate it. And if you happen to be hearing this on a holiday, then I wish you the best. And I'm glad you spent it with me. All right, fly safe.